The Historical Society of Greater Lansing has a special event, and the special event is held, the City Pulse had a huge issue last week announcing.
And Lansing State Journal had one over the weekend.
Yes. So we are very fortunate to have our first two guests, Valerie Marvin from the Historical Society and Nick Eyde, involved with the restored Knapp's building. And Valerie, tell us what's going on and what is your event all about, and let's bring Nick into the conversation about how you do restore that building.
Sure. On Saturday at 4 p.m. we will be having our annual silent auction to raise funds for a Lansing Historical Museum. And each year we try to seek out a different historic venue that people have an affection for, that's just kind of cool, a building you can't normally get into. And I have no idea if Nick remembers this. I actually called him years ago when we were about to do our first event, and he said, "You don't want to see the building right now. Give us some time." And so we've been to 3 other places, and this year we are thrilled to be at the Knapp Center on
That is the
Saturday.
real focal point in this.
Oh, it
town.
is.
Yeah.
It is. There is no other town, there is no other building in Lansing that people have as much affection for as they do the Knapp Center. And as a part of preparation for this, we've partnered with the Eyde company to collect people's memories of Knapps. And we've had customers write in, we've had former employees write in, we've had people write in about some sort of hijinks, if you will, at the store. But everyone loved Knapps. And we are so thrilled to see the building coming back to life and to be able to have an event there to sort of celebrate those memories, but also celebrate what Knapps will be for Lansing going into the future.
Well, I was telling Bill earlier, my first credit card ever, was at Knapp's, and I think part of that was because, and that was the era where women were not able to get a credit card at the bank because they had to get it through the name of their husband. They couldn't have an independent credit card. I mean, that's kind of scary to think that we were in that shape. But I think Knapp's was one of the first to sort of break that line and give women their own credit cards and credit in their own name, which was quite a big achievement. That certainly helped with business, I would think.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting because we've been asking people to look in their attics and see what they've squirreled away from Knapp's over the years. And we actually had one member who is quite the local history collector, who brought in a credit card from Knapp's that her family has saved all these years. And it's amazing to me what people have kept. You know, sometimes it was the boxes that you use to tuck things away in. We had some mugs from the Santa breakfasts of the early 1970s that people have brought in. Hat boxes with delivery slips still on them. Knapsacks are one of my favorite. Those are an internal publication that they had that was sort of a staff newsletter. And they are full of all kinds of information about who was working where and what new department they were opening and what they were celebrating, and some great pictures of people actually at their stations. There's one picture of one of the bakers actually downstairs doing her morning preparations. They've been a font of information. And sometimes they're pieces that are more sentimental. For example, we have a wedding dress that was purchased by a St. John's girl in the early 1950s. Couldn't afford to go in and buy it outright, so she did a layaway plan.
Layaway,
and
yes.
she not
Let's
only,
come back.
Yes, she not only kept her dress all these years, but she even has the layaway paperwork.
Oh,
with
wow.
it.
What did that dress cost in that era?
Oh, it's been a while since I looked at it, so I can't tell you, but I would guess maybe $50, $60, $70.
Under $100.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And when you ordered a wedding dress from Knapp's, you didn't only get the dress, you got delivery service, and often there would actually be a Knapp's employee who would come to your home or to your church and would actually help you dress and prepare for the event.
Last minute fitting.
Yes.
Kind of
Good luck trying to find that kind of customer service today.
Yeah. That was the era, I did grow up in that era where it was a big deal to go downtown. I mean, I lived in Cleveland as a child, and my mother would get dressed up. Everybody got dressed up to the nines in order to be seen down when they were shopping, and take the trolley down to the, downtown, and that was a big deal. And then, of course, the big things were Christmas.
Yes.
Are you going to be reviving, or did you get any of the Christmas goodies from?
We have a couple. We have a sled actually owned by a former employee that was used in some of the front window displays. Christmas decorations from inside the store that had been saved from over the years. And it was interesting, this past weekend I had a chance to talk with Martha Grimes Spencer, whose father, Howard Grimes, was the president of Knapp's and CEO and ran it for years, was an institution in this town. And she was telling me that it was actually on Thanksgiving, the window dressers from Marshall Fields, when they had finished Marshall Fields in Chicago, would drive up to Lansing, and her father hired them to do the Knapp's windows.
Is that right?
Yes. That's pretty big
Wow.
time.
Oh,
I
wow.
never knew that.
Wow.
I didn't either.
Didn't
until
trust the
Saturday.
local talent, or
Wow.
I guess those were the
They
were the really top-notch ones.
They would
those
have
in New
had
York.
people on staff who would have done their windows year-round because they were always putting different styles, Easter dresses and back-to-school clothes and so on. But at Christmas, that's when you had the sort of animatronic, if you
Oh,
will.
yeah, and
You had
trains and-
absolutely,
Yeah.
and that required a special crew.
So what kinds of things will be at your event? What will
Well-
people see when they get there? How-
Sure. Well, when they come in, they will have a chance to see the building. We will first of all be doing tours of the building, Nick and myself, and we're going to be joined by Bruce Kopatek, who is a department store historian, wrote a book on Jacobson's actually a few years ago.
All these stores that have gone bust.
So we're going to be doing tours. We will show the main floor area. We will show the atrium space, which is where a lot of the offices have been put in. And then we're also going to show one of the new apartments and talk about Knapp's from a customer's perspective, Knapp's from an employee's perspective, and then the future of Knapp's and what it will be going forward. We're going to be showing a slideshow looking at historic images of Knapp's, looking at some of the old advertisements, which are an absolute hoot. We have a 1924 Christmas catalog that has been
really?
digitized that we'll be showing off. And we're also going to be sharing some of the memories that people have shared with us in the competition.
How many employees did they have? They had quite a crew, didn't they? It was almost like a little mini city.
Yes. A lot of people would come and go. You had some college kids who would work there in the summertime. You also had people, though, who would spend their entire career there, 30 or 40
Right.
years. And at any given time, I would say you had probably 150 people. It was a big crew because not only do you have everyone on the floor, but you also have all of the internal runnings. You have markers, you have payroll. One of my favorite pictures from the knapsacks is the new payroll machine that they have to bring in through the window because it is so big it will not fit through the door.
Now, was that by any chance a Burroughs Sensomatic?
I have no idea.
I ran one of those. That's why
Really?
it was an early precursor to a computer. It was about the size of an organ, right? Like playing an organ, and it had all these fancy, rolling things that
Yes.
kept track of everything, and they were quite impressive. So I suspect there were only a few companies that made those. So I
Yes.
suspect it was very similar.
Very possible.
Yeah. So when did Matt Knapp's go out of business, and why did it go out of business?
Well, Knapp's went out of business in 1980. A lot of it was the trend of business away from downtown,
Yes.
going out to the suburbs, going to the malls. The Knapp's company was also purchased about 1970, 71. They were acquired by a company out of West Virginia, and they didn't really have the capability to run it. And it
Now,
was
wasn't
no
there a
longer
Knapp's
making a
at the
profit.
mall as well?
There was a Knapp's downtown, there was a Knapp's in East Lansing, there was a Knapp's at the Meridian Mall and at the Lansing Mall also.
Oh, really? That many? Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know that. I only knew the one at Meridian Mall. I've never been to any of the others, so I was unaware of that. So when did the building downtown actually close? It's been vacant for a long time, hasn't it?
Nick, you can talk more
Yeah.
about that.
So the building closed in 1980.
I'm going to need to move you right up on top of that.
The building closed in 1980,
Okay?
and we purchased the building shortly thereafter, and basically moved our offices into the building along with some state offices as well.
So it has run as a building, but only parts of it?
Well, the building was fully occupied, and there was a restaurant in the building called Tango's, if you may remember.
Oh,
up
yeah, I
until
remember that.
The mid-'80s, and then the building closed completely in 2002 when the state of Michigan moved out of the building. So it's been really essentially vacant since 2002.
So when that downsizing occurred, where state government began to shrink, then that was when that building actually closed. Now, my understanding, because Bill has tried to explain this to me, but I'm a little dense on some of the details, it has an unusual construction which was going to make it difficult to keep it rehabbed because of the way in which they can rust behind the tiles. Is that right?
That's right, and really the curtain wall system was a revolutionary one at the time in the 1930s, but it wasn't a system that stood the test of time. So it was kind of ahead
They
of
don't
its
do
time.
curtain wall anymore?
Not the way this building was designed. It was revolutionary, the design in the 30s, but because it was so new and untested, it ultimately failed, and failed very, very badly.
That building was close to those tiles falling off.
Well, yeah, there's a running joke we had with our architect as we were getting ready for the redevelopment that she wouldn't park as close to the building as she felt. She wasn't. facetious, but there was some thought that we need to get on this and get on it now and make sure that we come up with a plan to redo that curtain wall and then bring back that.
They
that
use
look to the
steel, is
building.
that right?
They were porcelain panels.
Porcelain panels that were held
Attached
up
to-
by
exactly,
steel.
right.
And I think didn't curtain wall in the 50s change to aluminum, and that might have made the difference?
That I don't know, but I know that
I was really bored one night and listened to a 2-hour discussion about curtain wall construction, as you can tell.
Actually, sounds interesting.
Sometimes I'm willing to, I'll read the back of a paint can if it comes down to that. So yes, I hate to get into the details on curtain wall, but so how were you able to restore it?
Well, what we did was change the porcelain panels, or they were not able to be salvaged because of the
Yeah.
deterioration over time, and we changed them to aluminum panels, which we feel look exactly the same as the porcelain panels, and redid the entire curtain wall system in a manner that instead of attaching them to what would be a failing system, that the rain screen and everything holds up this time. That was essentially what did it. The rain screen for the curtain wall system failed, allowed the water to get in and broke down those panels.
Were there any other surprises?
Many surprises along the way. I think the biggest surprises were from the construction standpoint, dealing with a little bit more asbestos and some different structural things that needed to be addressed, which weren't big things. The biggest surprises were finding a way, after we were not awarded the Brownfield Economic Development Initiative grant and also the first round of New Market tax credit subsidies for the project, how we could continue to get the project to move forward. Those were the biggest surprises, because the two institutions we worked with from a New Market tax credit perspective were Great Lakes Capital and the Magnet Fund, and they had been traditionally awarded an allocation every year, and then when they weren't awarded, we had to
We had to scramble.
scramble very quickly, and we were able to do it. And found
So
a
how
great
was the
partner.
package put together?
So it's a package that includes a HUD 108 loan, historic tax credits, the special consideration credit in the state of Michigan, which no longer exists. It has been replaced by the CRP credit, and then also New Markets and the state brownfield, which no longer exists in the way that it did then.
So if you'd have waited a few years, you wouldn't have been able to do it.
No.
Wow.
It's because some of the significant changes that state government made.
So those windows appear and disappear. That's one of the challenges that people talk about, is that you can't count on government to be the same next year and that sort of thing, that it's very hard to put those plans together. So we're very lucky this project sort of squeaked through as the package came together.
Very fortunate, and those programs were just vital to the reconstruction.
What does that mean for the future? Is that going to make doing this kind of thing more difficult? Is there anything that replaces it that would be...
So the CRP kind of replaces what would be a portion of what was there from the brownfield perspective in the state special consideration credit, but I've heard talk that special consideration credit is back on the table for consideration, and I think I know I don't have to tell you, but I think it's a great program to save some of the historic buildings in this state, and we have many wonderful buildings that need some attention.
Absolutely.
I've been in the building, so I've seen some of the things they've done, but one of the most remarkable things is the atrium you cut in there, right
Really?
in the center of the building. Tell us a little bit about that.
So the architectural firm we're working with is Quinn Evans out of Ann Arbor, and they have a wealth of experience on historic buildings. And one of the issues was bringing light into the center of an old department store. And so how do you tackle that? And how do you make it so that your experience when you're in one of the office suites is you have light, you have a very open experience. And so Liz, the lead architect at Quinn Evans, came in one afternoon with the idea of cutting a giant hole into the building, and
Wow.
and ambitious, creative, and ultimately very successful. I mean, when you've been in it and you've seen the effect it has when you're on one of the office levels, and it's a wonderful asset to the building, and the National Park Service embraced the idea, and here we are.
That's one of the things. All these things you did had to be approved.
Yes.
That's
By...
historic preservation.
Oh. Now, is it possible to take a building of that era and have it achieve today's LEED standards, or is that not feasible?
Well, from an energy efficiency standpoint, it's hard. It's very hard. We were able to get SURF certification for reusable energies and things like that. But from a LEED standpoint, we decided to go with Surf. Surf's a local group. I'm sure you're
Okay.
familiar with them, and we're able to qualify for their energy efficiency standard.
So how is the facility heated?
We use city steam.
Oh. Didn't even know that you could do that, so that's good.
Much of downtown's on city steam.
Ah. I just discovered today I have a geothermal water furnace, and I found out that it actually only uses 14 amps of electrical power when it needs it, and my hot water tank needs 18, so it actually uses
Wow.
less power than my hot water tank. So that's kind of amusing. I just wondered, because I know places are struggling trying to figure out in this era what is the route to go, and I didn't know how much greening you could do. We're not in a very good place for solar or for wind
well.
or other choices, but it's nice to know that you can do that with steam. What are some of the amenities or niceties within the new building as you walk in? What kinds of things will people see?
Well, as I'm sure you know, it's a mixed-use building, which, as Valerie talks about the history, the more I learn about what was happening in the building, as we found out today with, I think you can talk a little bit about birthing classes that were going on there and all these different things. We've really come back to a mixed use. Why don't you share a little bit about that?
About as mixed a use as you can get.
One of the things that I think is fascinating about Knapp's is the level of customer service they offer.
Yes, right.
They would literally take care of their customers from before they were born until they died, to the extent that they worked with the local hospitals and brought in nurses who actually taught classes for expectant mothers. You would come in, you would learn how to feed a baby, you would learn how to diaper a baby, how to bathe a baby. You would take a field trip down to one of the local hospitals and visit a delivery room. In fact, as we've been collecting memories, I had one woman write in how proud she was because after she had her first infant, she was in a shared room at the hospital with another new mother. And she was taking care of her baby and everything was going well. And the other woman looked at her and said, "How in the world do you know what to do?" And she said, "Oh, I went to the class at Knapp's, of course."
Oh my goodness. But you'd really be hard pressed not to buy everything there then. You'd buy
Well,
your
there was a
crib,
little
you'd buy
bit of
your-
product placement.
Yes, I would
but
think.
the class itself was for anyone who was interested. They could sign up.
Wow.
They had charm school where you could go and learn proper manners.
I'm a charm school reject.
They would have cooking classes. They would have all kinds of services on site. They would send people out into the community. Knapp's was known for their gift wrapping and their packaging, and they would send women out to different local ladies' clubs who would give gift wrapping demonstrations before the holidays. It was amazing to me how many ways they integrated the community in. They, for example, had a sort of co-op program with local schools. So Lansing students could go in and could learn a little bit about retail and about the business end of the store.
Little junior achievement, you'd get
Yes.
a chance to have a job down there.
Yes. They would select girls from different area high schools who would serve as sort of a teen advisory board. And as a part of this, they would get to sell some of the latest teen fashions. They would get to model them.
Yes.
And they would also actually compete for scholarships. And there was one young lady at the time who actually managed to get a $1,000 scholarship for college in the 60s, when $1,000 got you a lot more college than it does today.
And when college
It's like 4 years.
Yeah, right.
And this was because of the program that Knapp's promoted, actually.
See, that was an era, and when I look at how cutthroat retail is now, when you take a look at the pressures on a Sears and a Walmart and how we have really seen a dramatic race to the bottom in terms of to keep the prices absolutely low and the stockholders happy, you chop everything to the bone. It was such a different era in which
It was.
Companies really felt they had to reinvest in,
Yes.
in their communities, in their employees.
And truly a mixed use. I mean, you had so many things going on there,
Yeah.
and such a draw for all those things. It was, truly a unique place.
I went to Canada in the 80s, and I went into one of their large department stores, and my watch was causing me trouble. And I went to the counter, and there was a woman there who was probably in her early 60s. And she took care of my watch and fixed it on the spot and wouldn't charge me anything, right? I mean, and she was just an expert. And that's not the kind of thing you ever see anymore, but that was what Knapp's was so famous for, was people who would devote their whole lives to a particular line of something, and they knew all about it. I mean, you would go in to get hosiery, and they would tell you the fine points of different kinds of nylons and which ones you should get for this kind of wear. And
There was one memory that came in from a woman whose husband was a student at MSU. They did not have a lot of money. She had a little baby, but her favorite thing to do was go window shopping at Knapp's. And she was teaching herself to knit, and she had found this pattern that she wanted to make that called for a specific kind of mohair yarn, which is not inexpensive. And she went to the yard goods department and spoke with a sales associate there, and the sales associate helped her figure out what would work for it. And then she needed about 12 skeins for the sweater. Now, if you knit, you know that you have to have yarn of all the same dye lot.
Right.
So you make sure the color is exactly right. It's dyed in the same batch. Well, this woman could not afford 12 skeins of mohair yarn. So the sales associate tucked all 12 skeins away and let her come in and buy 2 or 3 a week until she had all of the skeins that she needed for the sweater.
It's that kind of unofficial caring and courtesy.
Yes.
Could get fired for doing that
It
now.
didn't get fired, right,
They
right.
wouldn't be having
They'd be
jobs.
out
And
on the street.
interestingly, she still has the sweater to this day.
Oh, see, that's the kind of
You know, one of the things that I found interesting when I was doing some research is I had no idea that Charles Stewart Mott Foundation owned Knapp's, controlling
Really?
interest in Knapp's for 40 years.
Yes.
Really?
They owned several large city department stores. Knowing the past of the Stewart Mott Foundation, I think he did it because he wanted to make sure these things made it through the Depression. I bet they subsidized it. If you could get into their records, I bet they subsidized
Wow.
Knapp's through the Depression and all the others they owned.
They were always a civilizing force. I mean, they really
That's how
were.
he spent his money.
Yeah,
Interesting guy.
there was a difference in the era when the department stores really came on board. It was a big deal to go down there for Christmas and to just stand outside and watch. Even if you couldn't afford to buy anything on the inside, you made sure to take the trolley car down so that you could see it from the windows on the outside. And it was a very gracious era, and I think many of us have a sort of pang of nostalgia for. Perhaps, sort of the brutal edge of capitalism is not quite as much fun. They don't tend to spend any extra that they don't have to in order to try to get you to buy.
Nick, I've got a question. How are the apartment rentals coming?
So there are 23 apartment units, and I believe we're at 15 or 16 have been
Wow.
rented. So
That's very...
Whoa. So what is the official the date for your event?
It's this upcoming Saturday. It's at 4 o'clock. It is a ticketed event, and tickets are available on our website, which is lansinghistory.org, or you can also purchase tickets at the door. Tickets include the tours through the building. They include the small exhibit we're putting up with some Knapp's mementos. And then we also have a silent auction where we will be having about 130 items up for auction. Then we'll also be doing a live auction.
130 items?
Yes.
Not just items, packages.
Oh,
There's some of the packages have got 10 items.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Ooh, tell me.
We have some interesting experiences, and I think that's one thing that makes our auction a little bit different. For example, we have a climb to the top of Beaumont Tower and a chance to actually strike the carillon while you're up there. We have drawing lessons with Gilbert van Frankenhuizen, who is a artist who's best known for his work on the Sleeping Bear, the Legend of Mackinac Island books, and so on.
Gorgeous.
He lives out in Bath, a personal visit to his farm, and a drawing lesson with him.
Oh.
We have a cookie decorating class with a graduate of Le Cordon Bleu.
Whoa.
Quite impressive. We also have a lot of gift packages. We have a deluxe stay at the English Inn, which includes a champagne dinner for two, one of their luxury rooms. We have a weekend getaway to Mackinac Island, actually, at the Island House. We have a stay at a condo in Glen Arbor for a weekend. We also have some interesting Michigan products. We have 99 bottles of Michigan craft beer
Ooh.
that we are auctioning off. We have the 12 wines of
One
Christmas.
of the pineapple ones? Or they're getting down to pineapple, I think.
Boffo beer was one of them. You gotta
Remember Old Frothing Slosh?
Yeah.
The stale
These-
pale ale?
These are
with the
in my
head on the bottom?
basement, so I know the names of them.
Oh,
Very
God.
weird.
There are still 99, right?
Yeah, there's still, I added one.
We have packages of gift certificates to local restaurants. We have an I Love Lansing package that includes a ride on the Michigan Princess Riverboat,
Oh, cool.
as well as tickets to the Impressions 5 Museum, great for a family, a membership at Potter Park for a family, a membership at Fenner Nature Center. We have local history packages that are full of local history titles, some of which are quite hard to find today. We have book packages on every subject imaginable, mysteries, American history, thrillers, we have a set of Elmore Leonard books,
Oh,
including a couple
great.
signed titles. We have, you're going to have to help me on his name, the former Supreme Court Justice,
Traver.
Robert
Robert
Traver.
Robert Travers.
Yeah, including a signed
Signed book.
Wow.
which is hard to find.
Yeah.
We have some MSU packages. We have a gift certificate for the MSU ticket office that can be used at any sporting
And
event.
90% of those books came out of Bill's attic.
Yes, they did.
He doesn't write midlandlit.com for nothing.
We have.
He's got all of them.
He does. Not quite so many
Yeah,
anymore.
That's so
not
many
as many
anymore.
anymore.
You've been looting
thankfully.
him for years.
Thankfully.
We have a wonderful package of MSU yearbooks, some of which are 100 years old.
Whoa.
We have a centennial package that has a 1955 MSU yearbook, a glass that was created for the centennial, a course guide for that year even. We also have some rare MSU sports items. Jimmy Ray was the quarterback for the 1966 national championship team. We have a signed Jimmy Ray football, as well as a copy of the MSU Notre Dame program, which that was the famous
Wow,
tie
the famous
game
tie
that
game.
totally ruined the season. And Jimmy Ray signed that when he was in town for us a few weeks ago. So really one-of-a-kind items.
And you start, I'm sure, the next day after the auction, because in order to get that much stuff for each year's auction, you better start the next day. That's quite a lineup.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Our board puts a ton of work
Wow.
into it. Bill, I don't think, sleeps a lot. But it's fantastic to see, and it's great to see the community to come out and to support this event.
This is LCC Radio, WLNZ 89.7 here in Lansing, Michigan. We're talking with Valerie Marvin of the Historical Society of Greater Lansing, and also with Nick Eyde about the wonderful event on Saturday that's going to be at the Knapp's building, and they need to get, now, can they come and get a ticket at the last minute, or do they
Yes.
need to get it in
Nope,
advance?
tickets are available at the door.
Okay.
And tickets are also available through our website. You can check the price there if you're
Yes, we're not allowed to
interested.
talk about those things?
We are also on our Facebook page, and through our Twitter, we are having a contest the next few days where you can answer trivia questions about Knapp's, and you can win a free set of tickets there.
Now, did Knapp's downtown have a restaurant where, I mean, that was part of the whole experience?
Yes. There was a cafe in the basement.
Yeah.
Luncheonette.
Luncheonette, yes.
It was a leased department, so there was a local family who would actually lease it for a set amount, and then they could keep their profit if they turned one. And it's funny because with these memories, I have had two people mention the same sandwich they served, which
Yes,
does
they
not
did.
sound
Signature
terribly
sandwiches, didn't
palatable
they?
to me.
Yeah.
But we're going to try it. We'll have some Saturday.
Uh-oh.
It's cream cheese, olives, and walnuts.
Oh, yeah, I know that. That was big in that era. Yeah, that's why people were not happy in the 50s and 60s.
Of course, white Wonder bread.
Yes, oh, of course.
And they were also known for their hot fudge sundaes, which we will be serving.
Well, it was Hallie's and the May Company in Cleveland that you went to. They had their own restaurants, and they would give, that was where you would get your Shirley Temple cocktail if you were a child. That was always a big deal, right? And then they would bring you in the May Company, they would bring you your sandwich in like a little building, almost like a
Really?
dollhouse that you
Aw.
opened up and your sandwich was. I mean, they made a big deal out of this. This was a very elegant kind of dining. I mean, it's not at all like picking up a Subway at Meijer, you know, that kind of thing. There's just not quite the same ambiance. I don't know. It's an era
There
gone
won't-
by. That's
maybe
going to be.
people will come in white gloves.
Wouldn't that be something? Yeah, yeah. And the hats and the carry the handbag. What a wonderful event. That's going to be exciting. I think you'll get a lot of people sharing stories that night.
Yes.
Oh,
And if
that's
people would
great.
like to share stories ahead of time, they can do that on our website. Again, lansinghistory.org. We have a link there where you can actually drop your memories into a form and share those with us ahead of time
great.
so we can incorporate them in the event.
That's very cool. That's very cool. Thank you so much for coming in. That's just wonderful.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about just the building. We're going to get to see it for another, several generations.
You didn't think it was going to be saved.
I didn't for the longest time. I just didn't see any hope.
Yeah. I mean, you said the construction was such that it was just kind of hopeless and
Yeah.
just too
So,
expensive.
so it shows if you really want something, you can do it, I guess.
Well, thank you to both of our guests for making that happen, and this will be wonderful.